The growth of the Mauritanian economy started gaining prominence in the late 19th century when slave trade was common in many countries. It, however, slowed in the 1980s after a lengthy period of rapid expansion in the 1960s and 1970s. The pause has been hinged on the severe drought of the early 70s. The country then became dependent upon imported foodstuff to feed its population. Staying in the 80s, iron ore production slowed because of a decline in world market prices. This gave it pole position to become the leading source of foreign exchange earnings and remained so for much of the 1990s. This never translated into financial growth for the citizens though, and it has always been a point of reference.
Pénibles. Ils ne peuvent plus accepter de vivre des conditions aussi pénibles malgré les ressources de leur pays, des ressources extrêmement importantes. Ces dernières années, du fait du boom minier, les prix du fer, les prix de l'or ont augmenté au cours de ces décennies, mais aucun Mauritanien, les Mauritaniens n'en ont pas profité.
In the mid-90s, the government began to demonstrate its commitment to the development of tourism and other critical industries to further diversify the Mauritanian economy. The tourism sector is not without its challenges.
Tu pressens les premières dunes au loin, légèrement arrondies, semi-formées. Là, c'est un instant magique quand même.
Another challenge is the country's budget. Mauritania's budget, usually in deficit, became nominally balanced in the late 1980s. Increases in the gross domestic product during the last 2 decades of the 20th century was generally offset by population increase. Mauritania's GDP grew suddenly in the first decades of the 21st century, mainly because of petroleum production that began in 2006. Now, the country's GDP growth rate is estimated at 3.9% in 2021, after a 1.8% contraction in 2020. Mauritania's hopes for future fortunes are pinned on its energy potential. Further prospects of both oil and gas at additional on- and offshore sites have continued, and large deposits of natural gas were discovered along the maritime border with Senegal in the 2010s. Foreign exchange reserves amounted to $2.3 billion at the end of 2021. External debt decreased to 48.2% of GDP in 2021, and debt services represented 7% of total export in 2021 against 9.6% in 2020 due to the debt service suspension initiative, which allowed Mauritania to suspend $200 million on its debt service payments. According to the survey on household living conditions in 2019 to 2020, 28.2% of Mauritanians live below the poverty line. Unemployment reached 12.2% and underemployment affected 41.9% of the population. However, the current administration has been initiating a raft of measures to improve the indices.
فقد تقرر ابتداء من فاتح يناير. أولاً، زيادة المعاش الأساس بنسبة 100% لجميع المتقاعدين. ثانياً، مضاعفة معاش أرامل المتقاعدين واستفادتهن من التأمين الصحي. زيادة رواتب عمال الصحة بنسبة 30% وتعميم علاوة الخطر عليهم.
Mauritania's economic growth in the short term is projected to reach 4.8%. Inflation is forecast at above the 4% threshold in the short term due to the sharp rise in global food prices following the Russia-Ukraine conflict. The fiscal balance is projected to be in deficit in 2022 and 2023 after increased expenditures to support economic recovery and the social sector. External debt is expected to reach 52.7% of GDP in 2022. Mauritania is now expected to continue this positive trajectory and grow by 4% in the year 2022. Lekan, Onabanjo, reporting for News Central.